Okay, so I just want to go over, resubstantiate our claims again, and refute a couple of the points that my opponents brought up. One of the points that they had was that the penalties for violating the AWA have gotten stronger. And while that may be true, I think it's kind of irrelevant since we already showed you how 95% of the animals aren't even, covered under the AWA. And so, yeah, they are increasing their, how many penalties they're giving out, but it only is applying to that 5% of animals that is protected under it. And I also want to bring up that the laboratories that only use mice and rats aren't even inspected by the AWA. So I have a quote from the American Anti-Vivisection Society. It says that currently the USDA does not inspect facilities that are only using species not covered by the AWA. All research facilities should be subject to the same level of scrutiny and be held accountable for violations. So without the minimal protections from the AWA, the scientists can do whatever they want. They don't have to consider alternatives or try to minimize the animal pain and distress because they're simply not being regulated. I have a quote from Elizabeth Lyons, who is a veterinary medical officer from the USDA, and she said, and this is when she was inspecting a laboratory that was using rats as well as other animals, so that's why they were inspecting it. During the inspection of the freezer, I discovered a rat that was barely breathing. It had been in the freezer for some time, possibly a day or more. The fact that the animal confined in the freezer was a rat and therefore not a covered species in no way diminishes the seriousness of this egregious lack of humane care for this animal. So the rats and mice, they are not protected at all, and they are being tortured, basically, and there's nothing that these inspectors can do about it because it's not under the AWA. So that's a major flaw with it. And I'd like to also focus on the alternatives and why they are actually effective and that they can actually replace animal experimentation. A 10-year international study proved that human cell culture tests are actually more accurate and yield more useful information about toxic mechanisms than traditional animal tests. And this is a quote from PETA. It says, non-animal methods usually take less time to complete than the animal tests they replace. In addition, they cost only a fraction of what animal experiments cost and are not affected by species differences that make applying test results to humans difficult or impossible. So it's more effective, it's cheaper, so I don't see why this is not going to work. And also, the U.S. spends more than $16 billion on animal research every year. So if we abolish animal research and put all that money towards the new alternatives that are being discovered, it would be very effective. And so I'd just like to sum up our points. Our first point was that animal experimentation is unethical and ineffective, and we argue this by saying that animals are mistreated, they do deserve rights, and that scientists use animals even when they're not best suited for a specific type of research. And also the fact that the AWA does not protect the 95% of animals is a huge thing. I mean, that basically just shows that only 5% of animals are being covered, so that's definitely a huge problem. And that alternatives can effectively replace animal research. I have a quote actually that says, 95% of medical schools across the U.S. have completely replaced the use of animal laboratories in medical training with sophisticated human patient simulators, virtual reality systems, computer simulators, and supervised clinical experience. So if all of these medical schools have deemed it possible to replace animal experimentation, then I don't see why the rest of the laboratories can't do that as well. So I hope you'll agree that animal experimentation is unethical and should be abolished. Thank you.